Stop, don't scroll, just give me 2 minutes. Just 2 minutes, then you can decide whether to scroll or stay. Have you ever wondered why we get sick over the course of our lives, and more often as we get older? In this video, I'll explain why. You'll find the links in the video description with 100% verified scientific documentation. Everything is there for you with links as proof, so it will be easier for you to check things yourself afterwards. So you might say, yes, we get sick because there are viruses. Yes, but in my opinion, that's not entirely accurate, because viruses can attack us. They can easily infect us and make us sick only if our bodies don't have a strong enough immune system to fend off the attack from these parasites, right? So, in most cases, we get sick as a consequence of having a weak immune system in a body that is functioning below its biological potential. In a moment, I'll explain why in more detail. So the question is, what are the causes of having a weak immune system? The most advanced scientific research suggests that the weakening of the immune system caused by cellular stress is the ideal ground in which almost every modern disorder and disease can develop. Almost all, except for genetic mutations, industrial poisoning, accidental trauma, and perhaps a few others. But in the majority, in most cases, this is the cause. It is caused by cellular stress. Studies and scientific research conducted in the fields of neuroscience, neurocardiology, neuroendocrinology, psychoneuroendocrinoimmunology, epigenetics, psychoepigenetics, biophotonics, stress physiology, neurobiology, psychosomatic medicine, neurophysiology, and many others which I have brought together for this short video and which I will refer to for simplicity as modern science, demonstrate without any shadow of a doubt how epigenetic factors and chronic stress act as the main switches capable of destabilizing our organism. Prolonged high cortisol and the accumulation of fluoride are considered by modern science to be among the most powerful accelerators of cellular wear and tear, laying the foundation for the vast majority of physical and psychological disorders. This is not just my opinion. This is demonstrated by modern science. I'm just putting this into a video based on the scientific documentation that I have also included in the links, I repeat, in the description. We have accepted all of this. We have accepted the management of symptoms, and conventional medicine fortunately offers extraordinary solutions for emergencies, for symptom management specifically, which we have come to accept as normal. But modern science invites us to take a step forward and reminds us and demonstrates how to achieve lasting well-being by first working on the deep biological causes and not just on the symptoms that the body sends us when it is already too late. Yes, because we get sick and then we treat ourselves. Instead, modern medicine invites us to try to prevent, so to focus on prevention, which is something quite logical, I think, right? None of us wants to get sick or suffer in life. Personally, I have applied the discoveries of modern science in my daily life. Personal experiences, I have recovered from several chronic disorders and now enjoy good health. Even the stings from dangerous insects which I live with in my area have become incredibly manageable, proving that my immune response is now quicker and more resilient than in the past. Modern science shows us that through the consistent application of natural practices, some of which were already practiced by ancient peoples, it is possible to lower cortisol levels, reduce excess fluoride in the body, regenerate the lymphatic system, and within just a few months achieve extraordinary spontaneous remission, gaining more vitality, health, and well-being. This supports our biology and stimulates deep self-regeneration in a simple, natural, and free way at any age. For elderly people, it might take a few weeks longer, but still in a short time. It worked great for me. It also worked for many people I know, and maybe it will work for you too. I want to share this information. I talk about this on my channel. I explain exactly how I applied the discoveries of modern science in my personal experience in my daily life by only slightly changing my routine. I want to share these discoveries with as many people as possible in the hope that everyone can benefit from them just as I did. It's an amazing thing. I wondered why such important discoveries that have existed for over 30 years in independent research, struggle to become public knowledge and are not included in institutional educational and school curricula. From my point of view, this highlights a profound inconsistency within the commercial system, the food industry, and the pharmaceutical industry. I believe that often the logic of the market and the huge multi-billion-dollar business revolves around selling industrial products and then treating the resulting diseases. Instead of actions, instead of investing in original health and in the decalcification of vital organs that are compromised by an epigenetic factor altered by the bioaccumulation of substances like fluoride. And in a moment, I'll explain to you why studies have shown that fluoride can become harmful if there is excessive bioaccumulation in the body, which enters most everyday consumer products, as I'll explain to you shortly. And stress so high cortisol levels without real awareness on the part of citizens. As shown by official sources, look at the situation we're in. 90% of the world population lives. I repeat, it's not me saying this, I'm telling you in this video, but it's all proven and all in the links. So 90% of the world population lives in negativity, which means with high cortisol levels for a long time, and almost 100% with excess fluoride in the body. As a result, feeling unwell is almost inevitable over the course of life, leading to old age with diseases that need to be treated. And now I'll explain to you why high cortisol levels and excess fluoride in the body cause cellular stress and the gradual and constant weakening over the course of life of the immune system, bones, vital organs, and the malfunctioning of the vagus nerve, which is fundamental. That is dysfunction of the vagus nerve, malfunctioning of our digestive system, negative influence on even brain cells, on all the genes in the DNA and on the DNA sequence itself, resulting in wear and tear, premature aging of the body at the cellular and brain level, with consequent discomfort throughout life, and an inevitable old age with diseases that need to be treated. Yes, because when an organism ages prematurely, it automatically becomes more vulnerable to possible ailments and diseases. It's logical, isn't it? Currently, official data show that there are about 15 billion diseases worldwide, distributed among the global population aged between 30 and 80 years, which is roughly 5 billion people of the world population though, which means that on average, some more, some less, there are 3 diseases per person. Some have 4, some have 5, some have 1, some have none, some have 6. I know someone very dear to me who takes 6 pills. So, 3 diseases per person divided into the following categories: metabolic block, 1 billion cases of obesity, 600 million of diabetes, 3 billion with high cholesterol, 1.4 billion with high blood pressure, 450 million with cardiovascular diseases. And here we are. Let's talk about cardiovascular diseases. Gut-brain axis, 2.5 billion cases of gastrointestinal disorders, 1 billion cases of mental disorders, anxiety and depression. Fluid retention and demineralization, 500 million cases of osteoporosis, 300 million with lymphatic stasis, 600 million with osteoarthritis, and 1 billion cases of seasonal flu. And if I made any mistakes in the categories, I apologize. And we're at more or less 12 billion. But if we also add physical disorders and others that we will discover over time, we reach about 15 billion, as I mentioned. Life expectancy has increased, deadly diseases have decreased, but the incidence of illnesses has gone up quite a bit. We live longer, but we get sick more often. And that's a fact. The statistics are clear. The data is clear. Now, the fundamental question that applies to every single one of us is not a matter of if it will occur. The real question is, exactly when will it finally happen? The data is clear. When will it happen? So I ask myself, why? How is something like this possible in such a modern, advanced, and technological world? How is it possible that almost the entire world population has high cortisol levels and excess fluoride in their bodies, which are the key epigenetic factors behind global malaise, as modern science shows us? From my point of view, it's a real pandemic, but that's just my perspective that slowly wears down our bodies without us even realizing it. And according to modern science, This makes us live far below our biological potential, okay? I'll explain it to you in the next few minutes. Modern science shows us this, and I'll explain it to you step by step using simple words and concepts so that everyone can understand. So let's look at our heart and our brain, okay? They are defined as our natural biochemical factories, the most powerful biochemical factories in the uni. Modern science has shown that the body and the brain are not two separate entities as most people believe. I used to believe that too. Absolutely not. They are a unity, a single entity that influences each other, both positively and negatively. Our heart, our beloved heart, is not just a muscle that pumps blood, but like the brain, it has a separate neural network made up of between 40,000 and 120,000 brain cells, which is constantly communicating with the brain. And these studies were carried out in particular by the HeartMath Institute. And there is also a link between heart and brain coherence, which I will talk to you about later on, also in other videos. Now let's talk about fluoride and cortisol. The brain is not fixed as people believe, but highly plastic, constantly changing its structure. Every thought, along with the resulting emotion, triggers an electrochemical process in the heart and brain, which in turn initiates a biochemical process that leads both to produce biochemical substances such as cortisol, adrenaline, noradrenaline, and other substances from the brain. If, from the heart, if our thoughts are negative, though cortisol is not actually produced by the heart, I'm just simplifying. Whereas if we nurture positive thoughts and emotions, our biochemical factories, that is the heart and brain, release other biochemical substances that are good for us, like serotonin, also known as the happiness hormone, which is even used to treat depression, were isolated in the 1940s, if I'm not mistaken. And they are good for our body. Like dopamine and oxytocin, they do us good. On the other hand, cortisol, adrenaline, and noradrenaline, if produced for too long or in excess in the body, cause stress and therefore cause discomfort. Genes and the sequence of DNA and DNA itself are not fixed as we believe, but are influenced, just like the cells throughout our entire body, including those in the brain, by our thoughts, our emotions, our reactions, and our actions. Okay? Cortisol is divided into two categories: eustress, which is the good kind, and when the levels remain high in our body for a long time, it becomes distress, the bad kind, but only if the levels stay very high. Okay? When we experience negative emotions, cortisol is produced. I'm simplifying it this way so I don't have to mention all the biochemical substances every time, just to make it easier to understand. On the other hand, when we experience positive emotions, serotonin is produced, and I repeat, I'm simplifying everything, okay? I'm simplifying. So I'll talk about cortisol and serotonin just to make things clear, all right? But first, before we go into our brain and see why cortisol is produced, why serotonin is produced, why 90% of the world's population is stressed and negative, so with high cortisol levels, you need to understand another concept because there's something else in our brain, and I'll explain it to you right away. You should know that in our brain, there is a very tiny organ located exactly at the center of the brain, between the two cerebral hemispheres. It's called the epiphysis, better known as the pineal gland, and it is considered, and I'm speaking from a lot of personal experience, almost useless, just a little organ that produces a bit of melatonin. Modern science, on the other hand, has shown that the pineal gland is an organ of fundamental importance for the well-being and safety of our body. In fact, melatonin and other biochemical substances produced by the gland what do these substances do? It protects the gland that functions well, a gland that functions well, protects and strengthens the immune system, protects against the onset of cardiovascular diseases, has anti-inflammatory properties for the body, regulates blood pressure, has an anti-atherosclerotic effect, reduces the process of cellular and cerebral aging, has a relaxing effect, helps to counteract high cortisol by lowering its levels. It has been described as the only one of the few natural methods we have to keep cortisol levels under control, so it is very important. It increases physical energy by giving more energy during the day and facilitates deep sleep at night, promoting the body's regeneration and strengthens the bones, preventing osteoporosis, and even more, much more than that. This, which I call a biological miracle, though it's not really a miracle because it is simply the nature of our body, is compromised, however, by the premature calcification of the gland itself due to fluoride ingested throughout life, starting from a very young age. This has been demonstrated by the studies and research of Dr. Jennifer Luke in the United Kingdom. Check the link below. And fluoride can be found almost everywhere, in toothpastes, even those for children, in mineral waters, in processed and partially processed foods, and even in foods prepared in most supermarkets, which are made using water that contains fluoride for processing purposes. It's also present in dental floss, in conductors, and in products used for fillings when we go to the dentist. In some countries around the world, it is even added to the tap water that comes into people's homes. Fluoride shows marked neurotoxicity in cases of prolonged accumulation, as has also been demonstrated by other studies from the IAOMT, which you can also find in the links. It is also found in the water given to animals to drink by some meat industries, and as a result, we end up ingesting it when we consume this meat. It is used in the production of many modern pesticides. Statistics say that fluoride is added to 70% of modern pesticides, so it is also used in pesticides. And furthermore, we end up ingesting it as a result of our unawareness, because we are not aware of how harmful fluoride can be if there is a prolonged accumulation in the body. And what other negative effects occur? It significantly weakens the skeletal structure of the bones, lowers the overall IQ, and it has also been scientifically demonstrated that the simple act of brushing your teeth with fluoride-free toothpaste, or perhaps using other natural alternatives and different products instead of fluoride, actually reduces the occurrence of cavities by a remarkably high and significant percentage. Personally, I am using fluoride-free toothpastes, and I also know some dentists who have decided to stop using fluoride. Then of course everyone ultimately does exactly what they want to do. Alright, now that we have thoroughly talked about the effects of fluoride, let us start and take a much closer look at the topic of cortisol. Simply because all of these different people seem to have such incredibly high cortisol levels these days. Let's see. So cortisol and other biochemical substances, if they are produced in excess, if there is too much of them in our body, they are produced by the brain. And the heart also produces adrenaline and noradrenaline, which are then released into the body. And if, as mentioned, they are in excess, they start to become a problem. And this happens in these cases. These are the main cases. When you are dehydrated or malnourished, in order to ensure survival, it is produced to give energy to the body to face the emergency. For example, if you are in a desert without food, well, malnutrition, cortisol is produced to give you the energy to guarantee your survival. But even when you are in a state of constant vigilance, always in a hurry, stressed, with excessive control, and the brain always under stress, even in this case, cortisol and other substances are produced. Look at how we live and do the math yourself. Everyone is running away. Everyone is rushing. With this frenzy, this stress, the body perceives it as if it were a threat, and as a result, cortisol is produced. It's a mathematical certainty. This is what modern science shows us, there is no doubt about it. And then, it is also produced when we are in situations of imminent danger, such as, for example, if we are faced with a wild animal. You're walking along calmly and suddenly you find yourself face to face with a lion, a tiger, or a bear just a few meters away from you. What happens then? In that moment, in that exact moment when you feel fear and you go, you know that feeling when you're scared? In that moment, in less than an instant, in less than a second, this happens. Your body senses the danger, the sympathetic nervous system is activated, as is the reptilian part of your brain, the primitive part too. The amygdala is activated. I'll explain what it is in a moment. The blood flows away from the central part of the body where the vital organs are, your breathing becomes shallow, your heart beats faster, sweating increases, your immune system defenses drop, digestion stops or slows down, and your body doesn't carry out the natural functions of maintenance, repair, and regeneration that are essential for overall well-being. And it focuses your energy on dealing with any potential danger or threat. Do you understand? If you have a wild animal in front of you, or if you are malnourished, then as a result, priority is no longer given to the vital organs and everything else, to the vagus nerve and everything else I just mentioned, but instead, priority is given to survival at the expense of the natural vital functions of maintenance, repair, and the overall well-being of the organism. These are the main causes of what is called survival mode or fight or flight mode. For simplicity, I will refer to it as survival mode. And in this mode, the brain produces cortisol and other biochemical substances, and the heart produces adrenaline and other biochemical substances which, if in excess, I repeat, become harmful and are then released into the body, okay? And if a person lives in survival mode for too long, the consequences are disastrous because they have a weak immune system, vagus nerve dysfunction, dysfunction of the digestive system, of the bones, negative influence on all cells including at the brain level, on genes and on the DNA sequence itself, resulting in premature aging of the organism at both the cellular and brain level, which throughout life functions far below its true potential, will inevitably get sick more and more often as life goes on, and will reach old age with various disorders and diseases. And we find ourselves not only with 90% of the world population under stress, therefore with high cortisol levels as the data shows, but we also find that more than 90% of elderly people suffer from one or more diseases and are forced by nature, rightly so, afterwards to seek treatment for those who are fortunate enough to be able to get care, because not everyone has that possibility. In the modern world where we live, perhaps yes, but in many parts of the world, unfortunately, not everyone has the possibility to get treatment. And so we ask ourselves, okay, the state of alertness is evident, so maybe we should slow down a bit in life, go a bit slower, be calmer, more relaxed. You can sense it in the modern jungle we've created for ourselves. But believe me, that's the least of our problems. But what about the other two reasons? In the modern world, we have enough to eat and drink, the fridge is always full, and there are no wild animals roaming around. We are safe, or are we? Unfortunately, that's not the case. I used to think so too, but it's absolutely not the case. Modern science shows us, and now I want you to pay attention, pay very close attention, because this is truly the most interesting part, that every time you have thoughts that lead to a negative emotion like fear, anger, resentment, anxiety, anguish, jealousy, remorse, rage, contempt, disgust, bitterness, hostility, and anything else negative you can possibly think of, every time, without exception, without any exception at all, every single time it happens, your brain, which is essentially blind and doesn't actually know what's happening in the outside world, perceives a threat exactly as if you were facing a dangerous wild animal in the woods. It reacts instantly, triggering a full-blown stress response throughout your entire body, regardless of whether the danger is real or just a product of your own mind. Your brain is blind. Everything happens at a subconscious level, and it makes no difference whether you have a wild animal in front of you, or an imminent bill deadline, or if you become impatient while waiting in line at the supermarket, or if you get angry about a train delay, or if you get mad in traffic because someone cut you off, or argue verbally with someone, maybe about a soccer match or politics, and I could give you hundreds more examples. This happens every time. Every time you have negative thoughts that give you negative emotions, always without exception, your brain perceives it as a threat. The production of cortisol is triggered, and your heart and brain pump cortisol and other biochemical substances into your body. You go into survival mode and you don't even realize it. You're not aware of it. And every time you go into survival mode, it's as if an alarm goes off. I call it the cortisol alarm precisely. Imagine this scene. Everyone inside your body abandons their maintenance, repair, and natural regeneration tasks to focus on dealing with a possible emergency at the expense of the immune system, the bones, even brain cells, as we mentioned earlier, the genes and the sequence of the DNA itself, and the functions of the vital organs. The body ages faster, and as a result, we end up with more than 90% of the world population living under stress and having high cortisol levels. On the other hand, when we experience a positive emotion, when we are calm and relaxed, and we feel positive emotions like joy, love, gratitude, compassion, and anything else positive you can think of, happiness, the opposite happens. The brain releases serotonin, the heart releases oxytocin, and many other chemicals that I call benevolent biochemicals, and the body automatically switches into regeneration, repair, maintenance, and well-being mode. That is to say, there is no alarm, everyone is calm, and just imagine, those who take care of the heart, take care of the heart. Those of the lungs, those of the bones. Do you understand? The intestines work as they should, everything works as it should. Do you realize what your thoughts and emotions can do to our body? Did you know that? I was left speechless, but it's all true, it's all documented, you can find everything in the links. It's almost unbelievable. Unfortunately, the cortisol alarm doesn't just go off when you feel the emotion in the present moment. Unfortunately not. That's nothing. The cortisol alarm is also triggered when you think back to the past. Even if many years have passed and you think back to a past event that made you feel negative emotions, your brain relives it as if it were happening in the present moment. It reactivates the same neural areas as back then, and in this case too, the cortisol alarm goes off every time, without exception. Every time you think back to something, to an event that gave you a negative emotion, and you relive it in your mind, even while you're doing something else. For example, if you run into someone you argued with and they're 100 meters away, you see them and remember that scene and get angry. Even in that case, your brain perceives a threat and you produce cortisol then as well. Incredible, and who knew this? Well, and then that's still nothing, that's really nothing. What's worse is that we have what are called mirror neurons, discovered by an Italian neuroscientist back in the 1990s. Check the links. There's a link for every concept I mentioned. Check the links. I've made a couple of them comprehensive so you get the full picture of everything in the video. So these mirror neurons, already discovered in the 1990s, so more than 30 years ago, are activated when you observe, perceive, or watch scenes from other people's daily lives, even if you're doing something else. And if what you perceive or see is negative, you go into survival mode and the cortisol alarm goes off in this case too. Let me give you an example right away. By observing a disturbing scene on the street, at the cinema, at the theater, watching a horror film, war, murders, seriously injured people, consuming television media programs such as newscasts, which do share serious news, important things to know, but in the end, to put it simply, in my opinion, but it's obvious, they constantly spread worry, anxiety, insecurity, destruction and death, accidents. How many people have died? Inflation, so worries, you see? Even in this case, the cortisol alarm is triggered, and it all happens on a subconscious level. You are sitting in front of the television, but your brain thinks it's happening to you. Something incredible has been proven. Do you understand? So even in this case, cortisol is released, it's activated. And now let's do the math in modern life. Well, I constantly see people arguing so unpleasant scenes, and on television there are so many countless programs that can trigger the activation of mirror neurons, and therefore also, even unintentionally while you're doing something else, the production of cortisol. It seems almost unbelievable. So now you're slowly starting to understand that the production of cortisol is the reason why most of the world's population has high levels of it. Then, on top of all this, we also add negative emotions. In fact, it has been shown that repressing emotions such as fear of judgment, fear of making mistakes, and many other emotions that we suppress may be to make ourselves stronger, to be more masculine, more of a man or women who want to be strong and suppress their emotions, not expressing them. Where do these emotions go? They don't just go away. It has been shown that these emotions get stuck in the body, and little by little, the more you repress them throughout your life, the more they can turn into physical pain. Repressed emotions, the most common example, and I was the first to do this my whole life, is when you say yes when you actually want to say no. For example, hey my friend, do you want to go? Oh yes, let's go. Then you turn around and think, what did I just say? Why did I say yes? I didn't even want to go. This is the classic example of a repressed emotion in modern life. So what happens then? If you keep repressing them, sooner or later they will turn into physical pain, which will automatically become suffering and therefore stress. In this case, it's the body that negatively affects the brain, and once again cortisol production goes through the roof. And then there are the negative statements we tell ourselves, the thoughts we have throughout life, dwelling on the past and worrying about the future. When you dwell on the past, thinking about things that have already happened, or you have excessive worries about a future that hasn't arrived yet, It's been shown that first of all, you use up a lot of energy because our brain makes up 2% of our body but consumes 20 to 25% of our energy. Moreover, this energy is taken away from you, and so in this case as well, cortisol can be produced. Furthermore, ruminating on negative thoughts, negative affirmations, saying things like I am tired, I am sad, I can't take it anymore, negatively influence the genes, the DNA genes and the cells themselves, as if the body were going into energy saving mode. And for you to get through the day, you need cortisol because you have no energy. On the other hand, conversely, when we talk to ourselves about positive things, when we say something positive to ourselves, okay, the opposite happens. We give ourselves energy. The aging process slows down, but I'll explain this to you more thoroughly in other videos. And the process of aging slows down, serotonin production increases, and as a result, the body goes into regeneration, wellness, and repair mode. So just think about what your thoughts, your emotions, your inner dialogue, your ruminating actually do to our body. This is why the brain and body are a single entity and are absolutely not two separate entities as they are still often treated, okay? Then we have the beverages we consume daily. As I mentioned at the beginning, the cortisol alarm also goes off when we are malnourished or dehydrated, okay? And you might say, well, that's impossible. Is it impossible? Is that what you say? Now I'll explain. I'll show you that modern science has proven exactly the opposite. When you eat junk food, and I'm not just talking about fast food, which we all know is unhealthy, I'm talking about most foods and beverages, even fruit juices, yogurt, packaged products, meats, products full of sugars, highly refined flours, all of which supermarkets are full of. All you need to do is download an app. You scan the product you have in your hand for its nutritional values, and you realize how many nutrients that food you're buying actually has. Something you've probably been consuming your whole life, because I used to do it too. Now I've cleaned everything out, both shelves and fridge, and you see how many additives have been added. Personally, I no longer buy products that have 70% less nutrients. I'll explain why. Even just the term nutrient, because there's a fundamental difference between eating and nourishing yourself. I started to nourish myself. And you'll come to the realization just how much junk food you've consumed and still consume every single day, mistakenly thinking it's actually healthy. Scented and nicely packaged junk, as I like to call it. And it's right there in supermarkets, and everyone has the choice to buy it or not. I decided not to buy it anymore because now I am aware of the additives that, when added, are harmful to me. So I personally have decided not to do it anymore. Moreover, these processed foods, for example, if you have 30-20%, some products I've seen have 2, 3, 5, 10% of nutrients. So what are you actually eating? Out of 100% of the product, you only ate a tiny part, and all the rest you didn't. What happens in the body to process all these additives, all this stuff, that these foods without nutrients, with very few nutrients? These foods are devoid or almost devoid of biophotons. They're called biophotons. Studies and research in biophotonics conducted in 40 countries around the world have already shown, as early as 2018, that biophotons are molecules that are absorbed from all emitted by living beings and can be absorbed solely and exclusively from the sun's rays. Animals, plants, and humans. Only and exclusively from the sun's rays, which is defined as vital energy. In fact, being in the sun exposure, not too much of course, because it's like a knife. You can use it to make a good recipe, but you can also use it to cut yourself or hurt someone. So if done consciously, being in sunlight, because these biophotons can be absorbed by animals and humans solely and exclusively through the eyes and the skin, okay? So even excessive use of sunglasses isn't good, and wearing clothes that reflect these biophotons, but I'll explain this to you in another video, isn't really that good either. I've also changed my wardrobe a bit, and I don't use sunglasses as often anymore, okay? So these foods are lacking in these biophotons. For example, meats from animals kept in stalls or chickens. It has also been shown that eggs from such chickens contain 100 times fewer biophotons compared to organic chickens, okay? Those that are, you could say, produced by the food industry don't contain any. And when you eat them, drink them, and feel full and satisfied, you feel quenched, but it's an illusion. You've eaten and drunk, but you haven't actually nourished or hydrated yourself. Your body cries out, it wants to be nourished, the brain perceives a real threat and produces cortisol to ensure survival. This is called caloric malnutrition. Furthermore, it has also been shown that digesting this stuff is hard work. You're already in survival mode, your digestive system isn't working as it should, so it struggles, and even more cortisol is produced to give you energy, causing the levels to rise even further. And it has also been shown that people with high cortisol levels tend, unconsciously, to eat unhealthy foods, which are certainly not lacking in shops and supermarkets, and cortisol levels rise even more. And furthermore, you haven't nourished yourself, so you get hungry more often and end up eating even more junk food. You don't nourish yourself, and after eating you might feel tired and take a nice nap. By doing so, in my personal opinion, you've dealt the final blow to your body. And you don't have the chance to get rid of the excess cortisol. That's why it's called junk food, because it really is junk, that is biological waste. And we find it in many places. We have the chance to buy it in many places. All of this is shown to us by modern science, or rather the modern sciences. Negativity in all its forms: eaten, drunk, thought, spoken, observed, perceived, suffered, exercised directly and indirectly. The hectic life we've created for ourselves. The early calcification of the pineal gland, which doesn't function properly due to the ingestion of fluoride from birth, or at least from a very young age. These, over the course of life, cause the malfunctioning of the lymphatic system, okay? Because even eating junk food causes the malfunctioning of the lymphatic system in an organism that is constantly in survival mode, functioning far below its capabilities, aging prematurely, and as a result, can get sick more often throughout its existence. It has also been shown that starting from 45 or 50 years old, our lymphatic system no longer functions as it should because it is never empty. The lymphatic system becomes clogged with biological waste, but there will also be separate videos explaining exactly why this happens and how to empty it, okay? In this state of the body, parasites thrive easily, diseases become a daily occurrence, and our lack of awareness about everything you've just heard leads us to believe that illness and suffering are simply part of life. This is what modern science shows us. And now you might think, okay, so I'll eat healthy, move a bit more, and think positively, and everything will be fine. Unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. It's not that easy. Excess fluoride is easy to eliminate. There are methods, it's simple. I'll explain it to you later. So, decalcifying the pineal gland. I'll explain it later, as I said, in a couple of videos. Cleansing and regenerating the lymphatic system is even easier and can be done in a short time, and there will also be videos about this. But the biggest problem is cortisol. Modern science has shown that by constantly absorbing negativity since we were children, okay? And it's a fact, for example, even conflicts at home, movies, all this stuff that's broadcasted, on TV, kids see it on television, and even as children, mirror neurons are still activated. So by constantly absorbing, and it's a fact, by constantly absorbing all this negativity, okay? Our reptilian brain, the primitive one, is almost always active. Our sympathetic nervous system, which is responsible for survival mode, control, and vigilance, is also almost always active. And as a result, cortisol production is in full swing, and the alarm is almost always on. And everything is made even more complicated by the fact that in our nervous system there is a small organ, roughly almond-shaped, called the amygdala, which processes negative thoughts and emotions. And by doing this over the course of our lives, okay? It becomes overactive, it grows at the expense of the part of the brain that processes positive thoughts and emotions, those related to the regeneration mode, okay? That is from our parasympathetic nervous system, which is precisely responsible for positivity. And with the sympathetic system almost always active, the parasympathetic system is hardly ever activated, and you can't be in both modes at the same time. So if you spend most of your life in survival mode, you've just heard what the consequences are for your body. Because with this enlarged amygdala, the brain is overactive and automatically seeks out negative thoughts, emotions, and experiences to satisfy the needs of a body that modern science literally defines as addicted to cortisol. Okay? And survival mode becomes your normal state. You don't even realize it, and you think it's normal, and as a result, over the course of your life, all sorts of diseases can develop. of many different kinds, of which at the moment we have more or less 15 billion, and that's a fact. And these are the main reasons why. You get used to it, so your thoughts and your emotions are the main reasons, along with malnutrition and the surrounding environment. These are the main reasons why we have all these billions of diseases in the world. You get used to the idea that getting sick is normal. Excess fluoride and cortisol in the body are the determining factors for an individual who spends most of their life in survival mode, which doesn't work well, causes premature aging, and as a result, illness and suffering are the consequences. It's a mathematical thing. It's not like you need to be a genius to understand it. And not only that, a brain programmed for survival drastically increases aggressiveness, emotional reactivity, and social impatience. This is reflected in modern society through the rise in conflicts between people, urban violence, accidents caused by haste, and the general lack of empathy and awareness in everyday life. And it's plain for everyone to see. And we also consider this normal. So the final conclusions. I've come up with some formulas, okay? Survival mode, negativity in all its forms, plus fluoride, plus junk food, plus a lymphatic system that gets increasingly clogged up over time, equals cortisol, equals overactive amygdala, blocked vagus nerve, and as a result equals illness and discomfort. Another formula, regeneration mode, more positivity, less fluoride, more biophotons, more lymphatic system drainage equals serotonin, amygdala in its natural state. Active vagus nerve equals health and well-being. So it seems like a movie. Positivity is good for us, and negativity, on the other hand, is bad for us. It seems like a movie, but it's the plain truth. Love, joy, peace, and happiness are good for us. They make us feel good, while negative emotions make us feel bad, to put it simply. So, modern science shows us, without a shadow of a doubt, that negativity and fluoride are the main causes of a weak immune system, which leads to both physical and mental discomfort. On the other hand, positivity and zero fluoride are the result of a strong immune system, a body in constant self-regeneration, and less vulnerable to the onset of diseases. The discoveries of modern science show us what the determining factors are for survival mode and therefore for the general malaise experienced by almost the entire world population. But fortunately, they also show us how, in a short time and in a completely natural way, we can spend most of our time in regeneration mode, repairing and naturally maintaining our bodies. With practices that I know well, have practiced, still practice very often, and have incorporated into my daily routine, such as conscious breathing, mindful walking, grounding, mental dieting, managing repressed emotions so as not to suppress them, how to decalcify the pineal gland, exercises to regenerate the lymphatic system, and much, much more. But above all, positive affirmations are essential for starting to reprogram the subconscious and shrink the amygdala. They are fundamental. And even more essential is mindfulness, awareness, but the real kind, the kind that is applied in everyday life. It is fundamental. And on my channel, I will show you how to do it, all in a simple, natural, and free way. It works for everyone, at any age, based solely and exclusively on research that has been tested and approved by modern science, which I have brought all together, okay? This isn't some esoteric stuff from a street stall. This is precision biological engineering. This is the magic of awareness. You just have to follow me. And I am certain that by sharing all these discoveries on my channel, all I have done is bring together all these scientific fields, which you will soon see in the links. And everything I say on my channel is absolutely 100% scientifically proven. I will always provide the scientific evidence so that you can check for yourself. In addition, there is also a universal link, because there are too many links to include. Where you can go, you'll see it in the channel description. You enter the name of the scientific field you're interested in. There are about 40 of them, if I'm not mistaken. I haven't counted them all exactly. And so you can enter the name of the scientific field you're interested in and check for yourself. That way, you can maybe inform yourself a bit more too, okay? And you can find all of this in the channel description. By doing this, hopefully, all the research is verified, which you can find in the description of my channel, and I am convinced that it will soon become public knowledge and be included in official educational and school programs so that everyone in the world can benefit from it. Returning, as modern science shows us, which is possible, to being a perfect biological machine, because most people we live far below our true biological potential. Far, far, far below, okay? Way below. All right, now you have a lot of information, you are aware, but as they say, knowledge is power, but knowledge without action remains just information. Information put into action becomes wisdom. Share as much as you can. Get involved yourself in the fight, in what I call it a pandemic, a real pandemic, the greatest pandemic that has ever struck in the history of humanity. Unprecedented, okay? Yeah, share with everyone, share my channel, talk about it out there, see for yourself how you can do it. We have to do it. We have to do it for everyone, not just for the current generations, but also for future generations, so that they become aware of the real damage that can be caused to our bodies during our lives. Our thoughts, our emotions, our actions, what we eat, how little we move, okay? It's very important, and I will do this on my channel. I will share this information because I want to share it. I want to share it with everyone. We've reached the end. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want, write something in the comments, your thoughts. I would really love to read them. I read them all. Please give me a like, subscribe to the channel. It's free for you, but for me it's very important because it helps the channel grow, and the YouTube algorithm will show it to more and more people, spreading it even further. Thank you in advance. And if you want to support my work, click on the channel description, not the video description, sorry, the channel description. Scroll all the way down and you'll find out how to do it. Thank you for your time and your energy. It has truly been a pleasure. And remember, the brain and the body are united, they are one and the same. And as the saying goes, as above, so below, and as below, so above. Thank you. See you in the next video. Bye. And check out the links in the comments with the scientific description. Bye.